Final project, Italian Process Work School by Jenny Carraro. Title, Embracing Diversity, A Journey Through Ableism. Welcome to this short video, or at least I hope it will be short. My name is Jenny, and I decided that for my final thesis, my final project for the Process Work School in Italy, I wanted to work on ableism. And while doing that, I encountered myself with the difficulties of creating a project that could be good enough in a sighted world and done by me, which wasn't really possible. I need the support of other people, how to navigate the different browsers and documents and readings and searching, and then how to write it and put it nicely. And so I felt very overwhelmed about this idea and a little bit pressurized to do something that wasn't really my doing. And so when I was talking to my different supervisors and teachers, and especially my supervisor for this final project, Pat Blackwood, what I realized was that once again I was trying to comply with the requirements of a world that doesn't fit my needs. And although for me it was very normal to respond to what the world was asking me, actually what was important was for me to be able to bring my needs and make things the way I really can do it and where I can really express myself. And so I felt that when I talk to people, when I give workshops, when I relate to people, when I am with people, is where I give the best, because my energy, because the way I relate things. And although it's very edgy for me, I decided to make this video and really kind of make a sign of resistance against these falling into ableist patterns. And so in this video, I would like to kind of touch different parts. One is my personal story, so how I lived my life as a person with lack of sight, and how I learned about ableism, what it meant for me then, what helped me. So in this sense, process work, as we are also working with the final project on process work, and I also prepared a toolkit for facilitators to accompany processes where people with or without disability, carrying one or another diversity, can actually find a way to listen to each other, to touch deeply into vulnerability in order to find the power that lies behind it. And so here I go. As I said, my name is Jenny. I'm Italian. And I lost my sight at the age of 2 in a car accident. I don't remember anything before the accident, but I do remember coming home from the hospital, which also is not something that is part of my memory. But the first memory I have is to bump into a wall and find a little plant on the floor. It had long leaves, I still remember it. And it was kind of on a corner between 2 different doors. So that became for me fast a point of references. So it wasn't just an obstacle in my way, it became something that would help me navigating this new world where I had to renew my senses somehow. Of course, you can imagine, a child that loses the sight in a car accident. I also lost my mom in that accident, and people were very worried. Don't do this, don't do that, you might bang your head, you don't see, this is not possible. And there was a part of me that was suffering and getting angry, and I was just like, people are bad. And I remember saying this, and it was just like, I need to do this. And so when people weren't around, when the adults weren't around, I was trying to do whatever for me was meaningful in that moment. Of course, sometimes I created little troubles, I broke things, but it was my way to say this is where I can get. And actually, if someone supports me, then I can go even further. I remember at the age of 4, my brothers, my cousins, all my friends were riding their bicycles and I couldn't. And I remember my dad helping me to learn how to ride a bicycle, taking off the back wheels, the side wheels, sorry, and learning to ride my bicycle through vineyards and going up and down and falling down and banging into a tree. But it was so freeing, feeling that I could do something. It wasn't just like you cannot because you cannot see. And in this way, I think I built my entire life. I always went to public school. I never attended specialized school for people with blindness. And it was challenging. I was always the first one. No one ever worked with a person with a lack of sight. Everything was to be discovered, to be adapted. But I really have to say that I found great support in all my friends and teachers. It was hard. I cannot deny the hardness and the desperation, the feeling of disempowerment I felt many times. But I really remember and I feel the joy of, I went to school, I studied, I could write with my typewriter in school, I could take notes, and my friends, although I'm sure it wasn't pleasant, they never refused it, they never complained about it. And so I also have to say that disability and finding the way to work it out in an ableist world, it's difficult. But again, when there is a network behind, when there are people willing to put their privileges, their options, their different possibilities in service, it becomes something that you can navigate, and you can also feel good about it, or just like feeling good about your life and feeling that, yes, you can achieve those things because you have the abilities, you have the knowledge or the strength. You just need that little extra support in order to be able to achieve it. Of course, it wasn't easy to go to school and learning, as I said, to do things the way others do it, like now, writing my final project. Do I write it? Do I not? At the end, I decided to make the video and to make also the book, because I feel it needs to have different levels, different people with different ability, different knowledge, different cognitive abilities can find different support in different materials. So for me, it was important to do both, for example. So I always pushed myself that little extra, and I love it. Yet I have to say that sometimes it becomes very difficult and also painful, because the impacts are on a daily basis. You have to explain people, to tell them, to show them, once again, bring out your vulnerability, and you're not always ready. And this continuous feeling that you cannot, and you are blind, or people approaching you with this pity care, as I call it, or this patronizing attitude of I know it better, people talking to your friends instead of talking to you. So there are many things that on a daily basis happen. They kind of reinforce this sense of I'm not good enough, and I'm very glad that I have this other part in me that says, but I still fight to understand how good I am, or how much I can push myself, or how many things I can do. In all of these, of course, I met other friends, other people, other children that were carrying other disabilities. And for me, it was always touching. I actually remember, touching the wooden leg of a friend that was 5 and already had a big surgery. Another girl that couldn't move and couldn't speak and couldn't see. And how I could relate with them anyways, and how their family or their support system were around them. Still, although there was lots of love, still now when I see it, when I think back and when I think back about my own life, I know that we were kind of either believed incapable of things or we needed extra care. So there was always this kind of attitude and education that made us feel somewhat dependent, somewhat also a weight, at least this is for me, for others. When I was asking something with certain people and in certain environment, there was this feeling of, once again, oh, I have to bring you, or I have to support you. So these kind of perceptions sometimes really pushes back, makes you feel even more marginalized, excluded, a weight for society. And so I remember all these kind of feelings, and I'm glad that today I'm trying to bring these voice and try to make people more aware of what can be believed in the side of the world of relationships. But I also felt always the need of doing something bigger. For some reason, my drive, my spirit pushes me to work for different topics and different issues. So I created a street children organization because I really wanted to support children with less economic, educational rights, everything conditions could actually be empowered and create their own life, be those who really handled and created the life. I worked then with the European Eco-Village Network as coordinator of the network. And there again, I felt the importance of not just taking care of individuals, but actually going beyond. We are more than just that. We are part of a system. We are part of a universe. And so if you realize that, then your attitude shifts. It's not just on one individual, on one person, on one need, but you kind of move in harmony with the entire system. And this means to put attention to care, and care in every form, in the way we care about the land, in the way we care about the resources of our planet, in the way we care about the relationship we build with our family, our neighbors, our friends, our organizations, and the care we also put in the small daily actions. So shifting the attention again from this production-driven energy where we have to be good, we have to produce, we have to make something extra, to the we just have to care. And this is also very important. If you think about all the work that families or mothers or anyone does towards like people who need extra support, like babies, like elder people, all that type of job, or even the cleaning the house, often it's not accounted as something that produces physically, economically something, but it actually produces and reproduces a system where people can actually live in harmony, can feel part of, belonging to, can express themselves. So this attention really supported me in building even stronger this idea that yes, we can do something. Yes, there are things that can change. And yes, even though I don't see, even though I'm a woman, even though my economical situation is not the most rewarding, I still can have an input in this world. I can still bring something more. And so I decided then to study facilitation, to actually live consciously the idea of community. I'm a person that always created community around herself. I always felt the need, the desire to be with others. And there is a part that, of course, has to do with me not being able to see. And so needing that extra support and understanding that if I want to do something with you, I need to understand when you are available for that. I need to respect your needs. I need to synchronize my rhythm with yours. So I really learned about collaborating together. And when I was in university, I always create community and friends around, and throughout my entire life until the moment I really decided to experiment with community, but also with this part of working on our social development, from how we relate to each other, the communication, how we make inclusive and participatory decisions. What does it mean to make a good decision for everyone? And so in this sense, I really feel like bringing in now my voice as a person who experiences a minority, who experiences marginalization, becomes important. And I discover this ableism concept, or exactly like working with process work, working with communities, getting in touch with other minorities. And I started feeling the importance of saying, okay, so we want to have an equal world. We are talking about creating equality. But in order to do that, there is something that each of us need to do, is kind of becoming aware of our option, our possibilities, and somehow putting them in service of others, of the entire system. And so I started studying and looking into all different theories, and from there became also this desire and need to create this video and to create this piece of work. Now I'm gonna try to tell the story of my relationship with process work and how through process work I got to understand better about myself, and also switching this conviction that I wasn't good enough, that I was inadequate, that I had to wait, that it was right for people to kind of blank me out or make comments or judge on certain attitudes, and it was normal for people to make jokes about being blind and not seeing and therefore being somewhat stupid. Everything was kind of the normality, and that was the world I still felt comfortable somehow, and I had learned to navigate through. But then when I started studying process work, I started learning about including all voices. I started learning about the use of our privileges and options. I learned about how we project things, maybe because of our own fears. And so I started thinking about all these things. So process work is a methodology that intends to raise our awareness on what happens around ourselves. And I have to say that my awareness rose in this year quite a bit. As I mentioned also, my life in community, experimenting with different facilitation techniques, using governance decision-making that implies participation, listening to all voices, helped me to implement what I was learning through process work as well. So it became like a combination that allowed me really to learn on how to bring voices into the world. Process work helped me to understand that all voices can be heard, and that no matter what they bring, they have the right to exist, because it's an experience that that person feels. There are things that we take as consensus reality. Let's say, something to write is something to write, and it's a pen. This is what we assign to this object they use to write, it's a pen. But on an experiential level, any one of us can experience a pen in different ways, can associate it to anything. And so that experience, that reality is also true. So all I was feeling before, like this sense of inadequacy, all this kind of sense of injustice, anger, feeling that there were things that were not right, that I would have loved to be able to do other things, but there was something impeding me, started becoming like, oh, I don't have to hide my voice. I can actually express it. It doesn't mean that it's the reality for everyone, but it is the reality I live, and it has the same right to be heard and listened as much as the one of anyone else. And so these really kind of helped me a lot to connect with my emotions, to those kind of feelings that often I was hiding, and other times where I was exploding, maybe with anger, maybe with a strong tone of voice, or sometimes also with judgment toward other, So I learned that I could express things in different ways, and I could create spaces, above all, where this was possible to express, and this for me really helped a lot. Then I arrived to discover what in process work is called rank, and then the consequent use of power. Now, I don't like to use the word rank so much, because rank already has an implication of higher and lower, better and worse, somehow creates already like a class, like a category, and I don't like it so much. So I prefer, when I also speak to people or speak to groups, to talk about options and privileges. Because when I speak about option, it means that I see the possibilities that are open in front of me, and I become aware of them. And I realize that depending on how many of these possibilities I have, these options I have also more option to choose right, to choose informed, to move in different ways, to take action with more easiness. And that again was like, oh. And this was kind of obvious to me, but to understand what gives these kind of options, how to somehow identify them, become aware of what moves you when you are in front of one person or in one context or in another one. And so experimenting this use of privileges and becoming aware that many of these privileges come from a social kind of system where you are ingrained. Others are just given to you by nature, by the society where you are in, and others you have to kind of work them out for yourselves. But something that I really realize is so important is also the so-called psychological rank and the spiritual rank, or those kind of privileges and options that you acquire more inside of you. Those that kind of are the ability of maintaining yourself during turbulences, to find your ground when everything seems to be breaking around yourself. And of course, those not necessarily, but often come also because of the endurance of life, the difficulties that you experiment in life. And of course, a person who lives a disability or a diversity and has to face a world where you're not contemplated, really. You have to gain, or you gain anyways, this strength. So it's also, it makes me laugh, because I think how often people with a disability, with a diversity, are thought as less, as vulnerable, and we don't see often the strength that's behind for enduring, for sustaining, for being there day after day, moment after moment, second after second, because you know there are things that you cannot take off. It's not like something changes I cannot see, and it's that 24/7. So you know it becomes another level of experience and thinking, okay, we can talk about these things. It's real. What I feel, this kind of sense of injustice, sense of difference, it can be seen by others as well. So now, what can we do to kind of engage in a world, in a society that's different? And so it's also working on ourselves. It becomes really important, the inner work, the getting to know what triggers me, what moves me, what traumas move when something happens, what kind of reaction of some old experiences come as first thing, and how I can also talk to myself or notice that emotion, maybe bring a part of it, but be able to not let myself be invaded or blocked or frozen by these emotions. And so doing inner work, understanding what was happening to me, also when I was associating to old experiences, maybe not even acknowledging the difference in the context I was now from the one I was before, because the reaction comes natural. The body goes into, I put myself safe. I know that if I react in this way, this will happen. So I already know the path. But with process work, you are invited really to kind of get to know a new path. Try to experience what this emotion wants to really express, embrace a part of it, and try to bring it into the table to make a decision, a relationship, like to build also with this part instead of ignoring it. So really process work opened my eyes in this direction, and I started working with also racism, in understanding how racism is another strong acts of intersectionality, of violence, and how even if I think I'm, not racist, many of my language, many of my attitude or different things. And so I started really getting into these kind of how to welcome diversity, how to really walk the words we talk. It's like, what does it mean not to be racist? What does it mean not to be ableist? What does it mean to be really open in acceptance? What does it mean to build an inclusive world? So this is really something that became strong with the use of process work and the environment that was built around process work. And that I started really embracing the different tools that process work brings in my different approaches, workshop, my life in community. And I learned so much about it that I became interested in exploring more about what my experience was. So how was I experiencing ableism? What did it mean for me? And what could I do about it for myself and maybe for others too? I have been speaking a lot or mentioning a list: ableism, ableist behaviors, intersectionality, and I thought that maybe was the moment also to give a bit of grounding on this terminology. So when I started understanding that I could bring my voice and express what I was feeling, and also had the right to ask for certain supports or certain type of environments when certain wordings were affecting me, I realized that there were already some studies that were mentioning, that were naming, that were kind of also categorizing what I was experiencing in my own personal life. And so first, I would like to mention maybe intersectionality. Intersectionality is a cross point where diversities meet. So diversity, options, privileges meet. So each of us experience in different ways our privileges and also our discriminations, what we live and experience. But there are certain people that are more likely to live more injustices or feel less included, or experience that other people's privileges somehow diminish their power. And so when, for example, a disability, skin color, or low social class meet in a person, most likely this person will have more and more and more difficulties in being able to live the life this person wants to live, to express the needs, the power, the desire that this person has. And this person will be subjected to more kind of discrimination or judgment or prejudices, exclusions, because we all hold different kind of prejudices and attitudes towards different types of diversities. So I discovered that when we relate to each other, to whether we are, in just a relationship between two friends, or with people we meet randomly, or you are in a group, you are in your family, wherever you are, we encounter people who were inhabit diversities of different types, size, height, skin color, gender, different physical abilities or diversities, different functionalities, different way to perceiving the world, even cognitively, different kind of ways of reacting to different life situations. So like having different mental kind of attitudes towards life, or different things happen. And so I thought, oh wow, there are so many diversity we need to take care when we actually relate to each other. This deal of we are all the same and we all have to adapt to be the same, and if you're different you have to deal with yourself, doesn't work. And believe me, although I have been inhabiting a disability for almost my entire life, I still had the feeling that what is normal is what is accepted and right, and everything else has to go around it. So it really became kind of a relief, a wonder, but curiosity, also kind of shocking. Certain belief systems that I myself had are not working anymore and shouldn't be working anymore. So I kept on studying more on these differences, different concepts, and I discovered that there are also different models that talk about disability. There is a social model that mentions how the environment is the one that kind of determines how able or not able is a person. A person might inhabit a diversity, but that person can have all the abilities possible. On the other hand, if the environment is not supportive, that person will never be able to express the ability she or he or they have. And so I really thought, oh, this is another big interesting thinking for me, where before, as I said, I was always trying to adapt myself, trying to adapt my needs, trying to learn to do things the way I was supposed to learn them, feeling a lot frustrated. So this really kind of changed my mind. Then I also realized that there are other models, which is called the medical model, and is the one that kind of puts the label, you are blind. There is a name. Actually, I don't see. So there is a different implication when I say I don't see than when I say I am blind. I don't identify with being blind, being less or not anymore at least, where I'm trying not to. So it's also understanding that when there is an idea, a system that puts a name to something, then it becomes what it is. We can talk about the justice framework, which again, based on the social model, asks for more implementation, for more justice in implementing these awareness in these environments, and brings different aspects on how we can work to improve, to share, to get even people with disability, with diversities of different types, holding spaces of, for example, leadership or decision-making kind of power, rather than just the people that are usually able and fully functional in the system, in the way we kind of think and perceive the world. And so I started really noticing that there had been a lot of studies before. There are different kind of models and studies, and these helped me to kind of also understand the different reaction often I had in my life when I was relating with people, and also what I got used to accept and think of myself, because it has been ingrained in that way in me. And how now I have the chance to choose really who I want to be, what I want to be, how I want to present myself to the world. So I feel like I have more freedom after doing this study also. I also learned about ableist behavior or ableist kind of attitudes. So again, there are different ones that we, and I include myself in it, put in place every day. So the attitudinal ableism, you know, people are used to see me as a blind person, as the one that cannot do things, and so the attitude sometimes is patronizing. Oh, do you need, or very infantilizing, using tone of voices that are like, why are you talking to me like that? Or assuming that I cannot do things, and so instead of asking me, do you want to do this, or shall I do it for you? So this kind of putting someone already in a place of being less. We have recreational ableism. You know, all those words and those jokes that we crack every now and then, being blind as a bat, you know, are you deaf, or you are retarded, and many, many, many other kind of phrases that we have in our daily life that implies that that thing, that condition, that diversity is less, is wrong, is something bad. We have communication ableism. The structure, the communication, the different browsers, the different social media, everything is not really adapted to the many diversity that we can really count, we can find among ourselves, whether cognitive, whether for the striking colors, whether for the size of the letters, whether for whatever you name it. But communication is not adapted to many people. It's adapted to a majority, and a big part actually adapt herself, himself, themselves to something, although it wouldn't be what they actually needed. There is a systemic kind of ableism, like the system is built in a certain way. The educational system, our policies, there is a certain, it's getting maybe a little bit better in the last years, but still people with a disability are less probable to be employed, are less probable to be considered as same as others. And not because the person doesn't worth it, but because people assume it without even giving the chance to the person to express what she or he or they can do. And I can go on. There are many different types of this ableism. The environmental ableism, of course, it's like what we have every day. Like the world is not accessible for different ways of moving around it, you know. So becoming aware that a person with a wheelchair, for example, is not disabled in a building where you can take a lift. It's disabled where a building doesn't have those accommodation, those accessibility. And also to become aware that when we make an improvement to something, when we improve it for one type of diversity, there is an effect which is called the core cub effect. And it basically says, you know, when the little slope like on the footpath have been built like for people with wheelchair, well, that serves people with trolleys when they go for their holidays, that serves people that go shopping, that serves mothers with their boogies. So making some improvements that are not just adjusted to one diversity, but they also have an impact for others. So this is kind of the creation of environment that they are supportive of diversity. And of course, ableism, as I mentioned, and I would say that we all have it. We all have it against ourselves. You know, we all push ourselves to always be better, to always achieve those standards, and then we feel frustrated, and then we feel we don't belong, and then we feel we're wrong. And what if we actually became more aware of our needs and try to adapt the world to our needs rather than adapting ourselves to the world? That would make a great difference for all of us, and we would stop being ableist. One of the biggest ableism that we do to ourselves all, you know, when we consider elder people useless, when you think they're worthless, they are already at the end of their life, and actually they're a burden. They should, if they knew how to use a device, why can't they use it now? Why don't you hear me? Listen, you don't remember, I told you yesterday. And all this kind of, when you lose your memory, when you become weaker, when your body is not responding the same way, and you know, age is going to bring these to all of us, almost the majority of us. Maybe some are lucky and they will be super able until the last minute, but I doubt it. So why don't we start understanding that there are different ways to relate, to welcome, to take care of diversity instead of pushing always to be standardized. So this is what I learned in these years and months and in a life of learning. And I realized that ableism, it's ingrained in many communities, in many cultures. In some culture, people with disability are seen like less, they are hidden, they could become a shame for the family. People with disability are less likely to have a normal sexual life, and they're most likely to maybe be abused. You know, romance is not like connected to disability. There are lots of different ways in which in our daily life, in our culture, we perpetuate ableism. And what can we do would be the question. Is becoming more aware and how it's getting to talk about this, because it's something that normally no one talks about. It's something that, as I said, neither for me until a couple of years ago, it was something I felt I could talk about. It's bringing this idea of accessibility in the places where you work, where you live. When you think about a new place, try to think about people with diversity that could come. When you organize an event or like in my case, a group facilitation, try to think about possible diversity. How do you present the material? What kind of lighting, what kind of seating, what kind of structure do you have around, what might be needed, what can be done? Can you ask people if they have any special need that needs to take care instead of pushing themselves even more? So it's really ableism for me, to overcome ableism is really to learn to listen to the different voices, to make space in this world for diversity and allowing everyone to feel like they belong. So with all this walking through my life and this transition between knowing and not knowing and getting to know process work and sociocracy and facilitation, understanding really deeply life in community and deepening this knowledge about diversities, intersectionality and ableism, I felt I really would have loved to bring this voice out into the world. And so I started kind of creating my own workshops and try to bring the perspective that I would love to kind of see flourishing a little bit more around me. And so I would like to start talking about the role of the facilitator, first of all. So when we work as facilitators, no matter what group is in front of us, but often when we know that we're talking about certain delicate topics, or in the room there are certain people living certain experiences or certain diversity, we need to put an extra care on both what happens inside of ourselves, what moves, what kind of reaction, what kind of pity care type of things, or what kind of like, oh my God. So like really doing some inner work on what are our reactions towards the people, the environment, and also then to try to put ourselves, or kind of at least try to feel what these people with diversity could experience in a room where everyone is so-called normal, or when we are with so-called normal people and we bring the topic of diversity, other things will happen. A sense of guilt and sense of denial and sense of reaction. So be able as a facilitator to recognize these different elements inside of you and in the field is something that really helps you to kind of maintain the field safe. So what I really learned is that doing inner work about the different topics that you're gonna face and the different possible roles, voices, experiences that could emerge in the work is essential to at least have a bit of a preparation on what are your reactions. You cannot preview what happens in others maybe, or what processes will happen, but you can actually have a bit of knowledge about yourself. Then you approach the group. So when you approach the group, for me, it's really important to maintain a sense of authenticity, a sense of welcoming, bringing my vulnerability, expressing who I am, what I need, how I think the environment could support me, and also what are the pains eventually that I might experience if certain things don't happen. Or so to try to really start the work already bringing yourself with that authenticity, with that clarity, helps the others to feel that that space is safe and they can also rely more on you. You know, I experience this, for example, when I walk with people or when I get to know new people. The fact that with me, people need to have a physical contact, walking me around, so I feel their rhythm, they feel my rhythm. I push often, people kind of react, they laugh, they notice when I feel uncomfortable, when I kind of trip over, they ask me about certain things and how I feel about things. And so the space opens for them as well to share and to be more vulnerable, to go more deep inside. And sometimes I get to know very deep thing or very deep sensation about someone in a very short space of time. So I thought these can also happen when we are in a group. So being able to communicate this energy and inviting participants somehow in this space. You obviously need to kind of be able to maintain an overview, sort of to have this meta ability of looking from the observer position. So if you notice that something touches you, go back and observe the group from this meta position and notice what are the different roles, the different voices that are emerging, where are hot spots, points that are kind of hot for people, are maybe an explosion of something that it's said, or an emotion that it's there to emerge but not fully yet, and yet there is an accusation on the other side. So those moments of kind of heat, hold them. Don't pass by, because that's a moment in which a voice is trying to express. Maybe it doesn't do it in the best way, but there is a very strong message. And if you as facilitator can hold it, rephrase it, bring it to the space in a more understandable way, it becomes a point of resolution, a point of understanding as well. So holding the attention to the field, it's extremely important. For me, it's also very important to be able to do the role switching, for example. So to enter in the role of one of the participants or one of the voices, one of the polarity, and notice, what do I feel? What is moving in my body? What kind of reactions am I having? Are they normal for me? Is it something different? Could it be me and the group feeling this? Is it just me? Am I channeling the group? So having this awareness, but moving inside, like for me, obviously not being able to see the proprioceptive channel, so the going into this kind of energy is extremely important, and became also easy with time. As I said, from childhood, I learned to kind of check into people's needs, atmospheres, availabilities, try to fill in what was people experience from the position where they were. And this helps me a lot to kind of understand certain roles, certain voices. It helps me to kind of go deeper in the emotions that they feel and perceive. And it also helps a lot to kind of distinguish what is kind of a moment, a sense of reality, as I mentioned earlier. So something that we agree that these happen, or this is something, and then the experience or the dreaming level that the person is experiencing. And normally when we manage to get these voices to communicate is when we bring a little bit the essence. So being able as a facilitator to maintain this view, to maintain this authenticity, to maintain this openness towards what the group brings, managing a communication that it's direct, clear, empathic, it's also extremely important. So our genuinity, but our genuinity also comes from deep work that we have done. And so I thought, okay, and now what kind of exercises do I bring? What do I bring to this group to understand? And I worked with organizations, I worked with informal and non-informal groups, in trainings, and the idea is, well, how do you get someone to understand what is a diversity, what someone can experience if that person is not experiencing it? You know, and also often we try to become the savior of other people, of other situations, where we're not looking into ourselves and what we actually need. And so we are projecting support and help towards others, but then we are angry maybe the way we have to do it and when we have to do it, or because others don't take me into consideration. So the first thing I thought is to get people to start identifying their needs, to start reflecting on their experiences in family, in groups of friends, in their workplaces, wherever it is. What would make their life better, easier? What would they really need? Do they have difficulties in reading? Is certain kind of decision too fast? Is it? What happens? What is needed? And it's unbelievable how many people in a group can come up with needs and diversity that they hold, but they are not spoken, they are not seen, and all the time they try to adapt themselves to the world and what the world needs. And so once you get people to get really in touch with their experiences, with what they need, and you get them to kind of imagine also how it could be a better world for them, what could they ask? Because there is a level where we understand things with our head. There is a level where we feel it, and we feel the impact of what we get to know, we feel the emotions, we feel the need of caring, taking care for something, but then we have to implement it with our hands. Otherwise, things do not land, do not change, do not transform. And so for me, it's very important to also kind of land impossible kind of planning forward, steps forward. Now, once we have done this experimentation and this work, and here you can use different type of exercises, I create a small toolkit where I offer some of the exercises I created and I adapted from other works. And once I've done that, then normally I like the idea of trying to get people to play, to experiment things through playfulness, through putting themselves into situations. I create different kind of experiential exercises, some where I put earplugs in people's ears, where others are deaf, or others are blind, or others are blocked in a foot. Someone else, I ask them not to speak or pretend they don't understand. Or so I create diversity within the group, and then I give simple tasks. That could be like go through a labyrinth that I create with different objects, or it could be step on a piece of paper now without stepping off of it, turn it around. And so how are all the commands given? How does the communication works? What happens when people do these exercises? This is the funniest, the most interesting part, because when we then do the reflection after the exercises, there is a good energy, people enjoy it, but all the ableist behavior, the environmental difficulties, the communication, the stereotypes, all come to surface. And also the frustration, the feeling used like an object, the feeling not being taken into consideration, the feeling of being marginalized, being patronized, infantilized, that the people who were holding this diversity express, is also a clear image of what happens on a daily basis for those people who are actually living this diversity. And so from there, I normally walk people through a bit of theory. So what is intersectionality and ableism? So like bringing them back, landing these experiences also in some terminology that can be more clarifying. And also I think different people learn through different tools. So I think it's important to offer a variety of ways to learn and understand the same subject, the same topic. And once I've kind of brought a bit of these, I start normally working with rank, privileges, option, the use of power, the understanding of diversity, because it's already the moment where people have some knowledge, can have a bit of a deeper analysis of themselves, of their behavior. They already had also an analysis of what were their needs, and from there, often what happens is that people might feel disempowered, might feel even angry, because what happens when you see that there is so much to do, that you maybe have things that you could put in the center, but you haven't done it so far, the sense of guilt, the anger, the feel of pressure. So many things emerge in that moment. And the important thing is to reconnect people to their power, to actually their needs, their power, their strength, also this dream of being welcome, being part of, belonging to, and the need to making this space safe for others as well. And then, of course, it's very important to land, as I mentioned earlier, not only what I need, but also what our environments can actually change. So on a structural level, what can be done, either in our groups, in our organization, in our daily life, in our attitudes, to actually kind of overcome certain ableist behaviors, certain ableist belief systems, to become a voice that can spread this diversity. So I decided to offer this kind of a compilation of exercises because maybe it's easier for people also to understand how to approach this theme, and you're more than welcome to experiment with any other way to put yourself in the center and create your own exercises. What I really invite you is always to try them out first on yourself. Notice how they impact in you, what they move in you, how they can transform in you before bringing them to the participants of any of your workshops. And I hope it can be useful, and I hope what I try to transmit is at least one step forward towards becoming more aware about ableism, ableist behavior, and how we can actually really embrace diversity and create a world where every life is worth be lived, and it's beautiful, and we can all be part of it. And thank you for listening so far. This project was made possible thanks to the support, guidance, and inspiration of many people and community. With deep gratitude to Process Work as a methodology for helping me understand the deeper dynamics in relationship and in life. To the wider movement for justice and recognition, and especially to the LGBTQIQ+ community and the anti-racism movement, which have shown me the power of collective transformation. To my community Artera Bisimodu for being a living laboratory of diversity and inclusion. To the world of facilitation for offering me tools to hold space with compassion and clarity. To my long-term therapist Peter Amman and Ghislaine Leyendeka for helping me connect with my sensitivity. To my process work teachers, and especially to Jill Emsley and Bogna Sinkovic for supervising my journey and inviting me to embrace my diversity and my needs with tenderness and courage. To Pat Black, my final project mentor, for supporting me in expressing my voice in the way most true to me. To Daniel Urrea for filming and editing this project with care and presence. And to all of those who throughout my life have lent me a hand so I could fulfill both my small and great dreams and meet both my small and great needs. Grazie a tutte, with love and deep appreciation.